Hello, I will talk about the murder of Tair Rada. The murder of Tair Rada, a 13-year-old Israeli schoolgirl, was committed in 2006 in the girls' bathroom of her school in Katzrin. Roman Zadorov, an Ukrainian and a resident of Israel, was convicted of the murder and was sentenced to life imprisonment on September 14, 2010. On August 26, 2021, Sadorov was released from prison to house arrest after many appeals. On March 30, 2023, Roman was released as not guilty for the crime. I will talk now about the murder and initial investigation. On December 6, 2006, 13-year-old Tair Rada of Katzrin reportedly decided to skip the last period of that school day. She stayed outside in the schoolyard with friends for a while before going back into the building to get a drink of water. She was last seen by several students going up a staircase leading to a mid-floor of 10th grade classes. Later that afternoon, when she failed to return home, her mother contacted the police and the search began. That evening, around 7 p.m., she was found murdered in a locked stall in the girls' bathroom. Her throat slit twice and multiple additional cuts to her face, torso and hands. According to news reports from the evening of the murder, the police's initial estimate was that classmates were involved. This theory was dismissed soon thereafter. On the night of the murder, police detained a homeless person as a suspect. 3 days later, police detained the school gardener as well. Both were released 2 days later due to the fact they weren't at or near the school on that day and their alibis were confirmed. On December 11th, police detained and interrogated Zadorov. On December 19th, 2 weeks after the murder, police announced in a press conference during primetime television on the 8 p.m. evening news that Roman Zadorov, a maintenance man, is held as the most likely suspect and that he had admitted and reenacted the murder. A day later, his attorney informed that he had recanted his confession. The motive for the murder, as initially stated by the police, was insults hurled at Zadorov after he denied Tair's request for a cigarette. Both her family and friends, however, stated that not only did she not smoke, but she couldn't even stand the smell of cigarettes. They also stated that rude behavior and cursing were very uncharacteristic of her. That motive was dropped. Police later claimed that the motive was sexual abuse Zadorov suffered by female classmates when he was an 8-year-old in Ukraine which caused a rage fit after he suffered continuous pestering by the school's students during his work, but that couldn't be confirmed. No alternative motive for the murder was presented by police in the indictment. I will talk now about the indictment and the trial. I will start with the DNA. Initially, the Israeli police leaked to the press the DNA samples from the crime scene were matched with Zadorov's. DNA and other mounting evidence were cited by the judge when remanding Zadorov in custody. Later, the indictment was filed with no DNA evidence. The state prosecution explained the filing of the indictment with no DNA evidence or laboratory test results as follows. The fact that the prosecution filed an indictment based on substantial evidence that exists implicating Zadorov without waiting for the US lab results show that there is sufficient evidence tying him to the murder and that the case isn't based only on that issue. The DNA test results were inconclusive. I will talk now about the shoe imprints. A shoe print police expert by the name Yaron Shor claimed to have found additional bloody footprints on Tair's jeans that matched Zadorov's salamander shoes. British shoe imprint expert Dr. Guy Cooper testified in 2009 that the stains could not be considered Zadorov's shoe imprints if shoe imprints at all. His testimony was dismissed by the court. FBI veteran shoe imprint expert William Boziak also claimed in his 2013 testimony that these stains could not be determined to be Zadorov's shoe imprints if shoe imprints at all. His testimony was also dismissed by the court. I will talk now about the hair. Hair discovered at the murder scene didn't match Zadorov. 3 pieces of hair found on Rada's body belonged to 3 different unknown people. Not all of the hair found in the crime scene were tested for DNA, since the police told the lab to stop all tests once Zadorov confessed. I will talk now about the students in Tair's high school. Media reports in the early days after the murder criticized the Israel police for searching for the murdered through the vast areas of the Golan Heights and the Galil instead of focusing on suspects within the school building itself. One of the students later testified in court that she saw under the bathroom stall where the murder was committed Tair's Puma shoes, youth size, all-star shoes and blood. A long list of students went through the bathroom around the time of the murder while Tair apparently struggled with the murderers, and some of them even noticed highly suspicious circumstances. Tair's mother stated on various occasions that she didn't believe that Zadorov was the murderer and that she believed that the true murderers were from Tair's world. She alluded that the murderers were high school students whom she believed to be members of satanic cult. In, in May 2016, an attorney representing two of the female students, Nofar Ben David and Lee Layani, issued a letter to leaders of Roman Zadorov's support groups, a warning prior to filing a lawsuit letter demanding an apology, adequate monetary compensation, and a promise to cease defamatory publication. In response, recipients of the demands and threat published on June 4, 2016, a statement rejecting the demands. Later that year, slander lawsuits were filed. I will talk now about the judicial process. Trial commenced in January 2007 with the filing of the indictment in the Nazareth District Court, followed by the September 2010 initial conviction, October 2010 filing of Zadorov's appeal in the Supreme Court of Israel, March 2013 remand to the Nazareth District Court for additional review of the evidence, and February 2014 supplemental judgment by the Nazareth District Court, again convicting Zadorov. On December 23, 2015, the Israeli Supreme Court denied Zadorov's appeal by 2-1 decision of a panel of three justices. Zadorov's team immediately asked for a new hearing by an expanded panel. No signed confession was filed with the indictment, Zadorov having recanted both his confessions and refused to sign his second one. However, police officers testified that he confessed in the investigation that he had committed the murder. No motive for the murder was provided in the indictment. The 456-page September 2010 conviction by a three-judge panel headed by Judge Yitzhak Cohen, then presiding judge of the Nazareth District Court, was read out in a dramatic open court hearing. It stated that there was no doubt that Zadorov was the murderer and that his testimony was full of lies and manipulations. Therefore, Zadorov further convicted on obstruction of a police investigation. The lack of any motive for the murder was found no object by the judges. In March 2013, the Supreme Court of Israel remanded the case back to the Nazareth District Court for rendering of evidence by expert witnesses as requested by Zadorov's lawyers. William Boziak, a world-renowned forensic expert regarding the footprint found on the clothes of the murdered girl, and Dr. Maya Forman-Resnick, a pathologist, regarding the murder weapon and the trauma injuries found on her head. Key evidence relating to the murder knife and shoe imprints. Key issues in this case were not settled. In February 2014, the Nazareth District Court returned a supplemental judgment, again convicting Zadorov. The Nazareth District Court rejected the testimony of the defense expert about the kind of knife used in the murder and called the assertion that it was not possible to identify the bloody shoe print embarrassing and fundamentally flawed. The December 23rd, 2015 denial of the appeal by the Supreme Court of Israel was rendered by a 2-to-1 split panel. On May 11, 2021, the Supreme Court ordered a retrial for Roman Zadorov in his final ruling, as the Supreme Court Justice Hanan Meltzer said, based on the evidence presented by his attorneys, there was sufficient reasonable doubt to exonerate Zadorov. On March 30, 2023, Roman Zadorov was exonerated for the crime. Thank you very much.